All right, how's everybody doing? Hopefully, well. All right, I saw the thumbs up. Thank you. Let's see. So sorry we haven't been here. I realized this class. Yeah, I haven't. Right, last week I wasn't able to get in. I had a meeting. But anyways, I apologize for that. I've looked over the different exams for the different classes. I have 4 classes of you all. So, but everybody for the most part, you know, did really well. There might be some individuals who aren't happy with their performance. If that's the case, you can always email me. We can figure things out to see what happened, see how I could better assist you or help you in one way or another. If you missed the exam, please email me. We can discuss that. Also, remember, if you only did 1 attempt, you know, getting that second attempt in there, you never know, right? It might be a higher grade. So if you didn't take the second attempt, let me know. Okay. We, for the most part, doing good. The homework assignment, and then I'll figure out an assignment to do sometime around this time. I'm trying not to just do so many assignments to get you guys too bogged down. I know you have other classes and you know, responsibilities and things like that. So I'll try and do stuff that's reasonable for you all. And I guess that's all I have to say about any housekeeping stuff, unless anybody has any questions about things like that. It has been hard for me to upload slides in my other classes, so I'm having to
split them up and put them on YouTube. Okay, so I'll still have it under the link for Zoom presentations, but there'll be links over to the YouTube. And I'm only allowed to upload like less than an hour. So I have to split them up usually. So it'll just say part 1, part 2, or whatever, okay? So this is chapter 5, and this is a fun chapter because we start talking about the physical and cognitive development of childhood. So let's dive in, right? Let's see. So yeah, again, setting the context, right? We're going to discuss any physical development, cognitive development, a little bit into language. I might kind of skip over some of that part about the language, and then of course, you know, our social cognitive skills. So this slide is just talking about our mind reading abilities, and that sounds kind of silly to say, especially when we're talking about psychology. People always think you're reading my mind, but if you really think about it, we all read each other's minds. If you can pick up on someone's sarcasm, if you can pick up when someone's being, you know, getting mad or getting angry, or, you know, say something that they don't really mean, then technically you're reading that person's mind, right? You're reading their emotions. So that's what we mean by mind reading in this context. And it's saying that it's kind of a unique human experience rather than other animals on this planet. And I would agree with that to an extent. However, you know, I'm a big animal lover, and I think our animals can pick up on intentions of humans, and they can certainly pick up on the intentions of other animals, but you know, whatever, that could be a whole other discussion. Language is another thing that humans have that's fairly unique to humans as well. You could argue, of course, that there are animals that also use language, but I guess not to the extent that we use language. We write books, we teach each other language, and so on. However, I like this picture here. I want to say this is Washu, a chimpanzee Washu, that is pretty famous in the psychology world. They taught her sign language, and she knew over 180 signs. And when they wrote research on her that she was truly picking up language, a lot of the naysayers said, no, she's just copying what you've taught her. She's just mimicking what you have already taught her. And they say that that's not true, that she mixes and uses signs to create brand new sentences that are truly reflecting her thought. One of them is she had a little stuffed animal, and I guess it fell in a bowl of water that she had, and she signed that the baby is swimming. And so that's one of the instances where they said we never taught her that sentence, and she came up with that on her own. Another one is that you can see here she's kind of sitting with this other juvenile chimp, and what they've noticed with Washu is that she teaches other young chimpanzees in her area also how to use sign language. And so that's another really fascinating aspect, that she is teaching language to you know, other chimps. So you know, something to watch. To me, I say this is the beginning of the end, right? This is the beginning of Planet of the Apes or something, but no. So anyways, but yes, I'm not going to sit here and argue. We all know, of course, that humans are on a different level than other animals on this planet, but and we can really think our complex cortex, and significantly here it's saying like our frontal lobes. We can think our frontal lobes and our you know, complex cortex to having higher thought, right? We plan for the future. I don't know if other animals plan for the future too much. You know, we have ambitions. We have, you know, we judge. You know, we make judgment calls of what's good and what's bad, and so on. We're able to inhibit, right? We're able to hold back on impulses, and not all animals on the planet can do that. So our frontal lobes allow us to do that. We think critically, we plan, we judge, we hold back on impulsive drives. So the frontal lobes really kind of help make you who you are, right? We could say that is a significant portion of your personality, okay? So a little bit about frontal lobes. You know, they don't fully finish developing until you're 25. A little kid is not functioning with very good frontal lobes, so they can't plan, they don't make good judgment calls. It's probably really hard for them to hold back on impulses. Another thing you could think of about frontal lobes is a drunk person, right? Somebody who's had too much alcohol is definitely going to have slower functioning and less efficiency in their frontal lobes. So when you think of a drunk person, say, okay, that's what our frontal lobes do for us. All right. Okay, so a little bit into the physical development. We talked about this before. We talked about the cephalocaudal, the proximodistal, and the mastospecific development. Well, we also see not only physical growth that way, we see that they begin to have motor control following those same principles. So a baby's going to get, you know, coordination of the head and the shoulders and big muscles in the arms, and then eventually down to those finer muscles in the hands. Okay, so cephalocaudal, proximodistal, and then mastospecific. Okay, so as little kids are growing and developing, at first you're going to see very you know, mass muscle movement. So if you notice a little kid and they hold their pencil like this, and they write or they color like this, this is using large muscles, okay? It's not until they get fine muscle movements when they're able to hold a pencil like this and then only use their fine motor skills to be able to write and to color. There's not much of a difference between boys and girls, but we do see a difference that, generally speaking, boys are better at large muscle movements and girls are better at those fine muscle movements. So boys are really good at running, riding bikes, climbing trees, you know, throwing a football or shooting a basketball. Little girls are really good at coloring and writing and, you know, braiding hair or making those little bracelets and things like that. So, you know, a way you can work on that with little boys is, you know, Legos. Legos are really good at helping with fine motor skills, but if they're too little, he might get frustrated, right? So maybe bigger Legos if they're really tiny, and then start building their way up to those littler pieces. So this is just kind of a, you know, little skills, milestones. Obviously, you know, a child could do this way before this age, but if they're not doing these skills by this age, then maybe there's some motor skills that could be looked into, something to bring up at the doctor. When you take a child to the doctor, they're a well visit and you take them for their yearly checkup, they're going to ask these questions and they're going to hopefully catch any child that has a problem with things like this. So by age 2, they should be able to pick up a small object with their index finger and their thumb, right? Like a raisin or a Cheerio or something like that. By age 2, you should be walking unassisted, and then they should be able to, in some way, throw or roll a ball. okay? By age 3, print their name. And of course, this is like either copying over the name you already wrote or tracing dotted lines or something like that. Walk without support, of course. And then, you know, this is the first time where they might be able to toss a ball, elbows bent, head, you know, over their head. Okay. By age 4, should certainly be doing all those things and cutting, you know, approximately a circle out of a piece of paper. Age 6, copying words, hopping on 1 foot, and then being able to catch and control a ball that's about 10 inches, okay, a little bit smaller. So those are just showing some of the skills little kids should be able to do. A little bit about nutrition. I know we talked about nutrition when we discussed infants, and we talked about breast milk and babies that in different parts of the world that are suffering from malnutrition or serious undernutrition. Here in the United States, we have mostly inadequate nutrition. You know, we don't necessarily see the severe malnutrition that we do in other parts of the world, but that's not to say that it doesn't happen. Of course it does. Okay. Really, the biggest issue that we see here in the United States is obesity. Okay. And this is a pretty interesting fact that in our poorest nations around the world, we see those that do not have food or do not have resources, do not have money, are malnourished. They don't have enough food. They're very, very skinny. Okay, that's where you see the stunting, right? They're not growing. Here in the United States, it's the opposite. Those that don't have money in the United States are more likely to be obese. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons or theories for that. We know that the cheapest food out there is the worst food for us. You know, it's very easy for me to go buy really cheap kind of boxed packaged food that's high in fat and you know, all the bad things. But then it's very expensive for me to go buy organic or buy kale, you know, to make different types of salads, and fruits and vegetables and things like that are more expensive. So here we see a little bit of a flip. Okay, whereas in our country, obesity is more marked by those that are lower on our socioeconomic status. So this is just explaining what that is, but I think one thing that's interesting to see here is that compared to the 1970s, when they started looking at BMI, and you look at now into the 2000s, we have so many more obese children than we did back in the 70s. So, you know, and who knows, maybe the increase of fast food, the increase of, you know, just all different types of food, maybe growing disparities between the rich and the not so rich. This is just talking about what I was saying before, that in developed nations, children from low income families are more obese. Obesity is largely seen in the most rich of families in our, you know, more developing nations. Let's see, I just want to skip through some of these. Here are definitely some factors. When I was saying why from the 70s to now do we see more obese kids, we definitely, yes, this first one, right? Now it is more common that we have 2 parents working outside of the home. Back in the 70s, you probably had mom stay at home and had time to prepare a meal. Now you have mom and dad working, or both parents working, less time to prepare a meal, more likely to pick up fast food. Okay. Oversized portions. Yes, 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 yes. Right. I have that one highlighted because that is just so big. You know, back in the day, if we went to McDonald's, you know, a medium was like this big. It was just a little glass. Now, like at McDonald's, I don't even think you can get medium. They just like skip over it. You get like extra large and large or whatever. The size is so big, you know. And I'm not knocking it. Well, I'm kind of knocking it because like if I go there and they give that to me and they give me this large drink, I will drink it all, right? And I don't need that. And so I think that's where the problem comes in, right? We give people all these food, our portions are so big now. Definitely low cost, high calorie, you know, high fat. And we're not outside as much, right? We don't go outside and play. Little kids don't play outside as much. When I was in school, we had like 3 recesses, right? We had morning recess, we had lunch, and then we had like PE or something. I mean, we were just outside all the time at school. And now it's not like that at all. So that could be. You know, this is just talking about, of course, there could be, you know, kind of usually parents who are obese have children who are obese, and it could be learned behavior. It could be a lack of education, not knowing that these are good foods, not knowing that these are things that we should eat. This is just talking about, we do know that people discriminate against people who are larger, and I don't think that's anything new or shocking to you all. There's, you know, definitely discrimination going on for those that are bigger. A little bit into Piaget and the cognitive development for this stage. So these are little kids that are learning, right? They're acting on the environment. They are going to learn at their own pace. You know, it's a little bit difficult to speed up cognitive abilities if the child is not ready to receive that. So let's go over this first, well, it's not his first stage, but the first stage for childhood. So Piaget's first stage is the sensory motor, okay, and that was for babies who are sensing and starting to move about the world. Now we get into pre-operational thinking. We started at about age 2, and it ends about age 7, okay? Piaget was not big on ages, and in fact, Piaget never actually put the ages. Those are just other people since him that have done this. So, all right, pre-operational thinking. This is a fun stage. This is when little kids are kind of silly. They make a lot of mistakes. They don't understand really the world around them. And that can either be really fun for people who like little kids, or that can be really frustrating for people who don't really like little kids or don't really like or understand little kids. They say that their thinking at this time is completely the polar opposite of that of an adult. They have no logic, there's no reasoning, okay? So they just are kind of, what you see is what you get, is kind of their approach to the world. What they see has to be true, okay? They don't have too much going on beyond that. So here's one of the first kind of phenomenon, I guess you could say, of the pre-operational thinking. And this is called conservation. I don't see it up there anywhere, but this is called conservation, or the lack of conservation. So conservation is knowing that the amount stays the same regardless of what container it's in. If I had a 12-ounce can of Coke and I open that can of Coke and I pour it into a really big glass, that no matter what, it's still 12 ounces of Coke. Okay, it's the same regardless of what the shape is that the container is holding. Okay, little kids don't understand this. They think whatever is taller has more. Okay, so here's an example. Let me give the full per thing, the full, oh, there it goes. Okay, so we might have to start it all over again. Okay, so what we do is, and you can do this if you have any little kids in your house or somewhere around you, you can do this experiment. It causes no psychological harm. There's nothing wrong with doing this. And this would tell you whether your child has the ability to conserve or not conserve, or do they understand conservation. So here we go. So you have 2 glasses and you fill them the same amount, okay? And you ask the child, does this one have more, this one, or are they the same? You want them to say that they're the same, okay? So you're gonna have to fill them up to where they're even. Then right in front of them, okay, you take one of the glasses and you pour it into a taller, skinnier glass, okay, right in front of them. And so now you're left with a tall, skinny glass and your shorter, stubbier glass, okay? In the taller, skinnier glass, the liquid volume will appear higher, right? The level will be higher. And then you ask the child again, does this one have more, this one, or are they both the same? Okay. A little kid who does not understand conservation will say that the taller glass has more, okay, just because it looks like it has more, even though 5 seconds ago they just told you it was the same. Okay, they don't see any problem with that lack of logic. They don't see any problem with making that very incorrect statement. Okay, once they start getting a little older, you know, 7, 8, maybe even a 6-year-old, it just depends. They would be able to sit there and really think about that and go, well, wait a minute, no, they're both the same. Okay, this is why little kids throw a fit for the big cup, right? They're like, I want the big one. And they start fighting and they start yelling and they want the big cup, okay? You're never going to convince them that it's the same amount, all right? So just give them the big cup and let them be happy. Conservation can move into other things other than just liquid. If you take an apple and you cut it into 4 pieces, and one child has 4 pieces and the other one you just cut it in half and they get 2, they might think that the one with 4 pieces is more just because it's 4 compared to 2, okay? The same with like pizza or a sandwich or anything that you're cutting up. If there's just more, they think that that person has more than they do, okay? These are some other things that we see with little kids. Identity constancy. This is the understanding that a person stays the same regardless of external changes. Okay, if I went and put on a cowboy hat, that does not turn me into a cowgirl. If I put on a Batman mask, I do not turn into Batman, okay? But little kids, you know, around 3 or 4 or so, they don't understand that, okay? And they can get really, really afraid of costumes, especially at Halloween. They can get scared of Santa Claus. They can get scared. You spend all this money to take them to Disney World or Disneyland, and they won't go near Mickey Mouse. They don't understand that that's a person in that costume, okay? So that's identity constancy. You can also see it with things just like a wig, dad, right? There's some funny videos that go around where the dad shaves his beard. And so they may be really confused about that for a little bit, okay? Whether that's dad again, or mom, if she's always cutting her hair or changing the color, okay? Animism is the belief that inanimate objects are alive. And this one, you know, sometimes we have some good debate about this in class, whether we truly, when we were kids, believed that our toys were alive, or did we just, you know, I don't know, that one's kind of debated. Everybody jokes now that because of Toy Story, right, we all now know that our toys are alive. It's no longer a question. But I think if you ask a little kid, is this, say in this example here, is this bunny alive? You know, like well, I don't know about a 2-year-old, maybe a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you know, I don't think they'll say that it's alive, but if you ask it, will it get sad if I throw it? Then they will say yes. So I know there's a lot of, they put human beliefs into animals and inanimate objects and things like that. But I'm not sure if they would necessarily answer, yes, that bunny is alive. But all right, artificialism. This is the belief that humans make everything. And, you know, this one can continue on for quite some time, and it can get pretty complex, you know, where they might ask, who makes the trees? Okay. And you're like, the Lorax, right? No, you know, you just have to explain, you know, trees just grow. We don't make them. Or they might ask you, like, move the sun, or, you know, make it dark, or make it, you know, sunny again, or something like that. And it's just, we can't do that. Egocentrism, this is a pretty big concept right here. So egocentrism is the inability to see somebody else's perspective. Okay, so they're only taking their own perspective, and they just are very rigid in that. They're unable to see the world from somebody else's point of view. So we'll talk about egocentrism in just a minute. This is just an example here of identity constancy. Here's a little bit about animism. That little boy seems like